Hi, Johanna.
Hello.
So we're here in London. What's it like being a vegan in London?
I think it's pretty easy actually. It's probably not as easy. I think veganism is really trendy in Germany right now actually, and it seems a lot easier to be vegan in Germany than even in London. But London's not bad.
You've been to Germany?
Yeah. I think you know how here they have Superdrug has vegan lotion and stuff, but a lot of it's really crap. But they have a lot of drugstores that have vegan stuff that's actually good, and just tons of vegan stuff in supermarkets and everything. I hope someday it's like that here.
Yeah, that'd be cool. So you're based in London at the moment. So
yeah.
how long have you been in London and what are you doing?
I've been in London since 2011. I sort of just wound up here. I moved to England from New York in 2008 to Bristol with my partner at the time. He was going to grad school, and then just ended up in London because I'm a big city person, and I'm just here right now because I like the way life runs over on this side of the pond better.
So you're quite into social justice.
Mm-hmm.
What type of things are you interested in campaigning about?
The whole kit and caboodle, really. Intersectionality, which I understand for certain sort of white middle class guardian feminists is a bad word, but basically that just means acknowledging that we all have different facets of our identities that intersect. We all have a gender, we all have a race, we all have a class, we all have a sexuality, etc. I'm really interested in movements and in activism that recognize these links and that don't, for example, super not into PETA for all their misogyny and all their racism, for example. That's an example of how not to do intersectionality.
What would be a good way to apply it to the vegan movement?
There's so many bad examples. It's so much easier to think of bad examples. I think recognizing that not everyone has the same economic privilege and access to food. So I know a lot of people say, oh, but veganism is really cheap. If you just buy a bag of dried beans and cook them up, it's really cheap. You don't have to buy, pre-made veggie burgers or whatever, which is true. But in order to use those dried beans, you need to have grown up in a culture that taught you how to cook, and that you have to have a kitchen. You have to have the time to cook those dried beans. You have to know how. You have to have the leisure to. You have to not be running from job to job or running to pick up your kids or whatever. Some people don't have time to cook that other people have, and so there's this concept called food deserts where people in low-income neighborhoods, they often don't have supermarkets. They might just have a really expensive corner shop that just has really limited amounts of fruits and vegetables. So not everyone has access to all these fruits and vegetables that vegans love to talk about how cheap they are and how easy it is to be vegan. So I think it's really obnoxious to act like everyone can just up and start cooking like that when it's not actually true. And I think veganism can also be, as a movement, it can be really fat-phobic, and a lot of fat-phobic stuff is just based on bad science. It's not true, and when people promote veganism as some sort of magical miracle health cure, I think it harms the movement. It's hateful, it harms people, and it harms the movement because not every vegan is thin. People who are not thin can be healthy. Veganism, people who are vegan can get cancer. They can have other health problems. It's not a magic cure-all, and it really bugs me when people promote veganism like it is.
What do you think about people that find it offensive when you compare the animal rights movement to maybe anti-racism, anti-sexism, and they don't think that it should be compared to animals?
So you mean like when PETA make comparisons to slavery or the Holocaust, etc.?
Yeah.
I think that's super sensitive, and I think people need to respect why non-vegans might find that offensive, why vegans find that offensive. A lot of vegans vegans do find it offensive. I think particularly because the animal rights movement doesn't have a good history with diverse communities. So it might feel like one thing if, you know, animal rights movements always had, you know, good connections with anti-racism and participated in these movements and things like that. But especially when they don't, you know, they're just using these comparisons to shock and to try and, you know, without, it's not really their comparisons to make in a way. And I know that, so not all vegans agree on this. Not all vegans who are part of these communities agree on this. You know, I know some Black vegans support the comparison with slavery. I know some Jewish vegans support the comparison with the Holocaust. I think it's a really complicated issue, and I obviously can't speak for all vegans. I can't speak for Black people because I'm not Black. I can't speak for Jewish people because I'm not Jewish. I think whatever productive discussions might be possible aren't possible because animal rights movements don't have good connections with these people. Right. So yeah, another way that vegans are alienating and problematic. For example, when vegans took the Black Lives Matter campaign and said, all lives matter, cows' lives matter, or whatever. Don't do that. That's so problematic. That's not your slogan to appropriate. Yeah, it's... If people have an issue with why I'm saying that's wrong, there's a whole internet full of blog posts for you to read about that. Just don't do it, vegans. You can be creative. You can come up with your own hashtags. You don't have to appropriate from other movements that historically you have just done not a heck of a lot with.
Do you think vegans should still stand in solidarity with other movements?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that goes back to the intersectionality thing. You know, we have other parts of our identity. We're not just vegan, you know. So, you know, I have an identity as a person of color, as someone who's gendered by other people as female. I have a class identity as someone who grew up middle class. You know, all these issues affect me through those lenses, not just as a vegan.
So before you mentioned that if you can't speak for Jewish because you're not Jewish, you can't speak for Black people because you're not Black. So can you speak for animals if you're not an animal?
So the thing is, animals, it's very difficult for animals to communicate to us. Obviously we can see when animals express fear and pain, and I think because they can't communicate easily with us, you know, vegans, if we care about animals, we have to advocate for them in some way. And, you know, at the base of things, what vegans want is for animals to be free and to not be killed. And that's probably a desire that all living beings have in common.
So what influenced you to become vegan?
I was vegetarian for probably about 13 years, since right before my 16th birthday. And for a long time I thought, oh yeah, no, that was enough. Then I had a lot of vegan guilt for a while because I kind of knew inside for me it wasn't enough. I think just after a while, after probably about 5 or 6 years of feeling guilty about it, and I just decided I was just going to do it. I had a lot of friends who were vegan. I grew up during the era of Riot Grrrl in the US, so there's a lot of, you know, there were a lot of vegans in punk rock feminism. So yeah, I just decided that I wanted to try and minimize harm. I don't think veganism is a perfect solution for everything. It really irritates me when I see vegans selling t-shirts or stickers that say cruelty-free because, hi, how about the low-paid migrant workers who picked your tomatoes? How about the child slaves who made your chocolate? Cruelty-free to who? But I feel like for me, veganism is a way to try and minimize harm as much as I can. It's not perfect. I remember when I first became vegan, I was a very excitable sort of letter writing type of vegan, and I wrote to a vegan magazine back in New York. They had an article, I think about, I don't know, vegan t-shirts, vegan t-shirt companies or something. And I said, you know, I've been writing to vegan t-shirt companies and asking them if their stuff is made in sweatshops, and a lot of them got really defensive, or a lot of them were like, our t-shirts are made in the US, which doesn't guarantee anything. There are sweatshops in the US. And yeah, it's I realize it's really difficult to have a shirt that's vegan and fair trade and not sweatshopped and organic cotton and stuff. And obviously the class issue comes back into that, because a shirt like that is not going to be the 2-pound shirt you get at Primark. But we have to at least pay attention to these issues. We have to try and engage with them, even when we recognize that they throw up other issues related to that. And I get disappointed when I see vegans not doing that, or when I see vegan movements refusing to complicate things like that.
Do you have any tips for people that want to go vegan?
Okay. There are tons of people out there talking about, here are some easy things you can stock in your cupboards, here are some easy recipes to make, so I'm not best placed to talk about that, but I think just to say it is possible to be vegan and to care about other issues. That sounds really simplistic, but things are complicated. Veganism intersects really well with some issues and maybe not so well with others, but just remember that you can be vegan and still carry all your other identities with you, and you can figure out a way to make them work for you. And that, it's a complicated process. It's not just, okay, now I've gone vegan, now I'm done thinking about animal rights, I'm done thinking about oppression in general. These things are never done. Try not to be discouraged. Sometimes it just feels like everything is too difficult altogether. How am I going to think about vegan things, and how can we have our our vegan t-shirts printed on non-sweatshop material and organic, and how can we still make them affordable to people and stuff, and that stuff is tiresome and it's hard and it's difficult, but it's really necessary. And if we want to have any kind of sustainable movement, we have to make the movement welcoming and accepting of people from all different kinds of circumstances with all different kinds of identities, and that's just hard. I think ultimately at least it's worth it. Just don't be conned by people with really easy pat slogans. And just be willing to keep questioning. Always be willing to question even the big famous vegans. Don't assume that they have all the answers, or that they have the answers for you.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.